Good morning, Biblionauts, and welcome to my last day in this room for a while. Today, not tomorrow, I am leaving. I'm taking that, and I'm going to isolate myself from humanity because what a better time to do that than Christmas. But yeah, before I left, I wanted to make one more video. I was just scrolling through BookTube and searching for my daily dosage, and I came across a video from Bookstalgic that it was titled 10 books I'm excited to read for myself. And of course, me being me, I had to turn that title around and turn this video, this video a much more fatalist tone to it. So these are 10 books that I need to read before I die. And without further ado, let's get started because I have quite a few. I also have some honorary mentions. Some of these are rereads that I need to do. And before even getting into the list, there are a few books that I want to reread because I read them in the wrong way, because I did not get everything out of them, or because I read the wrong edition. In Moby Dick and Dune would be the two novels that but for different. Moby Dick and Dune would be the two novels that I read in the edition that I would want to reread them, but I didn't feel like I got enough out of them. And since both of them became immediate favorites, they are two books that would be on my top 10 favorite books of all time. I think that's more than reason enough to want to reread them. Then we have two very different books that also I want to reread, which is The Critique of Pure Reason by Kant and The Phenomenology of the Spirit by Hegel. I don't think I got even a fraction of what's going on in these pages, and I want to. I don't like the feeling of finishing a book and feeling like I am still not in, if you know what I mean. I guess philosophy and bad philosophy plays with FOMO a lot. And sometimes you just spend hours and hours and hours on a book, and it wasn't worth it. That happens. That has happened to me before. Very often, philosophy makes you like spend hours and hours and hours to arrive at a conclusion that you had when you were 5 years old. It's only that now it's justified because you have a whole structure of argumentative structure that gets you there. However, that's not the aspect of philosophy that I like. In any ways, the Critique of Pure Reason and the Phenomenology of the Spirit are too important in terms of the philosophical landscape for me not to know them front to back. So that's the only reason. It's pure self-imposed duty. And the last book that I need to reread is 100 Years of Solitude. This is the favorite book of one of my favorite Spanish booktubers, Trota Libros. And I only read it in an abridged version, very abridged version, in high school. And I remember liking what I read, but I wasn't even a reader then, and I didn't read the book, the actual book. And I want to read the book because it seems to be a very good book, and I haven't read that much Spanish literature. But more of that once we get into the list. Now we can start. This is number 10. The number 10 on the list is The Dream of the Red Chamber, or Chamber. Whatever. The author is Cao Shueqin. I'm not gonna apologize for my pronunciation. Sorry, that's the first and last time you will hear me say that. But yeah, I don't know why I wanna read this book. It's just supposed to be the Cao Shueqin is supposed to be like the Chinese Proust. And since I didn't particularly like Proust. I tried reading In Search of Lost Time, and as soon as I got to like 3 pages in a row of one of the characters just talking about how jealous he is and just being consumed by his jealousy, I was like, okay, yeah, I get this is a human struggle that people go through. It's not my case. I made sure it wasn't. It's not that I was born without jealousy. I just changed my perspective of how I see human relations, and with some work, I got out triumphant on the other side. which means that for me, reading books that are so dedicated to struggles that to me feel incredibly infantile and that we sort of outgrown, like in the medieval era, um, feels boring. That's me. I'm not judging you. That's how I feel. I am. If I come across condescending, it's because I am. When it comes to this topic, I just can't understand how people can structure the relationships like that and then not be able to handle the toxicity which is implied, is intrinsic in those relationships. So Proust aside, I said, okay, since I'm probably never gonna read Proust, let's read the Chinese Proust. Since I am fascinated with Chinese culture, since I want to learn Chinese, it would be interesting to read this book in English and then in Spanish. And then once I am starting to learn Chinese, read it in Chinese once I know the book or the books, because I think it's a series of books. So moving forward, the Iliad, of course. I just made a video about the Odyssey, and I love the Odyssey. The Iliad defeated me in the past for reasons that I have already said, I believe. That have to be with me thinking that I'm gonna die and being trapped in the mountains and then having to fly across many countries in order to not be completely broke. So life got in the way of me and the Iliad, but I have to read the Iliad. I need to read the Iliad. I also, like, I have a very bad habit of referring to Homer all the time when I write, and of course, like Homer is everywhere. Like every other writer I read is either influenced by Homer or explicitly referring to some specific part of the Iliad or the Odyssey, and especially if you read like philosophy and nonfiction. So I need to, like, it's a spine on the back of my mouth that I just need to remove very quickly. I don't know when I'll do it because last time I tried to read the Iliad on a hike, didn't work. So this time I'm not gonna take the Iliad. I'm gonna take two books that are very different from that. The next one is Middlemarch. I just want to find out if Middlemarch truly is the best novel ever written in the English language, and also confirm whether or not George Eliot studied in the same university that I am studying, which again, the dates for me don't fit. I don't think that is true. I don't know how it could be true, but no one has just disproved it to me. I keep saying in the videos, hoping that someone will like spare me the time of like having to search through Google and dodge all the university propaganda that obviously will tell you that she did, in order to find out that she actually didn't. So yeah, Middlemarch. The next one is The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikiba. I was surprised at seeing that Tale of Genji has an author. I thought we didn't know the author of The Tale of Genji, but I was searching. This is all the this is all the preparation that these videos have. This is just a list of the titles, and the top keeps going there. Okay, The Tale of Genji by Murasaki Shikiba, which is supposed to be the first novel ever written, and apparently was written by a woman. How is that? Interesting. Do I need to explain why? Do I need to read this book? I don't think so. That is enough, but on top of that, I've heard so many people in both English and Spanish booktube claim that it's an amazing novel, that it's really good, that some people love it, some people has it on their favorite books ever. So there you go. And now, number 4 is La Regenta by Leopoldo Alas Clarín. And La Regenta, for those who don't know anything about it, is often called the Spanish Ana Karenina. I don't know about that. I loved Ana Karenina. I didn't love it. It would not enter my top 20 favorite novels. No, it would enter my top 20 favorite novels, but it would not enter my top 20 favorite books. But it was a very good book. It's probably like the most successful novel I've ever read in terms of like being excellent at everything. And I mean, like, just because I have a Spanish accent, people assume that I have some sort of like patriotic sense in which that has obliged me to read everything that there is to read in Spanish language. So often someone will come to me and ask me for like Spanish novels to read or Spanish stuff to read. It is true that, having been raised in Spain, I have a bit more knowledge of that country than any other. But I don't have any sense of patriotism. I haven't been in Spain for a decade, and even when I was there, I didn't feel like I belonged because I would always get moving from one place to another one. And during my childhood, and I always adopted the accent of the places where I arrived, which means that when I arrived in a new place and I had a different accent, everyone would treat me as if I didn't belong there as well. Which basically meant that my identity from the very beginning was a traveler, a foreign person. So yeah, I mean, I speak Spanish more fluently than I speak English. I write a bit better in Spanish than I write in English, and that's my main. And also, I know a lot about like Spanish music, stuff that has to do with having grown up there, but nothing that couldn't be achieved by someone like moving into Spain and being involved with the culture for a decade. So the only reason to read this novel instead of some other is not that I am, and I'm saying this because there is a bigger gap on my Spanish literature reading that is gonna be at the top. I don't know if number 2 or number 1, but so I'm just preparing you for that moment when someone will think, so you're Spanish and you haven't read that book. So just wanted to leave it out there. The only reason why I want to read these books is because they are important in the tradition of literature, and maybe to silence people who expect me to read books just because they were written on the country in which I was born. But my reasons are literary when it comes to what I want to do. I don't care about whether these books were written on my country or some other country. And even using the word mine for referring to one country, I feel, when I'm here in the UK now, so I'm English. When I move to Spain, I will be Spanish. When I move to Portugal, I'm Portuguese. And when I move to Mexico, I will be Mexican. That's how I feel about that. So without, let's get on the top 5. And number 5 is one of the very few books that I did bring with me, that I have here, and it's now Shakespeare is not really I have read Shakespeare. I have read some of his plays, especially I have read multiple times Macbeth. I have that in common with Sean from Sean D. Stenfast. I have watched plays from Shakespeare. I have watched movies inspired on Shakespeare's plays. So it's not fully new. Is one of these books that, because it's such a seminal text on the history of literature, it's impossible not to come across in one form or another. But I haven't ever read all the plays and all the poems, and just the book cover to cover, and that's what I want to do. So while I'm still in the UK, when I'm gonna just try to keep going to plays and maybe support my following the plays, because some of them are done in old English and it's harder for me to listen and understand than to read and understand. And once I am done with the UK and I left, I will just read the whole book, being more familiar with Shakespeare. So yeah, Shakespeare is number 5. We can only be going downhill from here, isn't it? The next one is War and Peace by Tolstoy. I have a whole story with Tolstoy. I hated him. I loved him as a writer. I don't know. He has a personality and a writing arch that touches all my chords when he's good, and also all of them when he's not. So the late Tolstoy I detest. The earlier Tolstoy I love. And War and Peace is the one book that is one of these books that even before reading I kind of know that it's gonna become my favorite, one of my favorite books ever. And because of that, I always tend to postpone the books that I want to read the most and read sort of like the second category books, which is quite stupid because if I die tomorrow, then I didn't read those books. I read the second category books, the Class B books. So, yeah, I mean, but I still need to read War and Peace, and that's going to happen in 2024, 100%. Now, number 3 is another book that I have read in different forms, but not in the supposed to be like the best form, and that's the King James Bible. I read abridged versions of this for school because I was forced to go to a Christian school for my last years of high school, and I was a contrarian, but I wanted to have arguments, and so I kind of like searched through the book for things that I could sort of like just facts about the Bible that I could throw or argue against the teachers. Some of them would engage and argue back, and I would enjoy that a lot, so I kept reading. But it was abridged versions. I never encountered like a full Bible, like a Bible. You know what I mean? And then in my grandmother's house, I also read an illustrated version of the Bible because she's Christian, and I remember enjoying that one a lot. But I never read the King James Bible cover to cover, and that's what I aim to do. It would be an interesting book to take with me to Scotland, but it's too heavy. If I take that one, I cannot take 3 other books. And the good thing with the other books that I selected is that they were all books that I know I will read, but I wouldn't mind getting rid of afterwards. Which means that if I am in the woods and there's like, you know, this hut that I'm going to, and if I am in that hut and I finish one book and I liked it but I didn't love it, I can leave it there for next person, or I can give it to someone walking on the street. That means that if the backpack is too heavy, which it might be, I always tend to to carry too much stuff. Then that would be a nice way to get rid of weight. But if I carry that book, I'm not gonna get rid of it, I know. So there you go. Now we are in the top 2. And this is what I was kind of like preparing you for. This is Don Quixote, with that letter that so many people in the English language is unable to pronounce. J. Don Quixote by Cervantes. Of course I read Don Quixote in abridged versions in school. I never read Don Quixote, if you know what I mean. So there you go. I don't need to explain myself why I need to read that book. There it is, and it should be read at some point. And number 1 is Lord of the Rings, which of this list might be the one that I will enjoy the most reading. It is one of those books that also is like both of my parents read it when they were young and they loved it. And I grew up like seeing it on my father's how do you call it, table, like the bed table, the one, I don't know how you call that thing, like a small table next to his bed, and this is, and of course, you know, I slowly, bit by bit, I read all the other books that were standing on his table there, the books that he always had with him. But I remember Lord of the Rings being the one that he sort of like got more excited about when I asked him to talk about the books that he read. It's the one that it's not like, I don't think he would call it his favorite book, but it's certainly the one that you could see him enjoy more talk about. So in that sense, if he were to be honest to himself, probably that would be his favorite book. And because of that, of course, I have to read it. So there you go. That's top 10 books I need to read before I die. Now the only thing left to do is not to die, so I can get to read them. Although living the kind of life that I live and doing the kind of things that I do, I'll probably not last to 100, which would be ideal, so that I have enough time to read this and everything else. So yeah, I'll see you on the other side. Thank you, BookTube.